Ray Dalio, billionaire hedge fund manager, founder of Bridgewater Associates, well, he recently said that he's worried about something coming that is worse than a recession. And that's not really comforting, because when Ray Dalio says something worse than a recession is coming, he doesn't mean you lose your job, tighten your belt, and maybe start selling feed pics online to make rent. He means the actual system we rely on to make money, borrow money, and pretend money is real, well, that could all start to wobble. And that's a problem, because if there's one thing people like, it's money. Try telling your landlord you'll be paying for rent with exposure, and watch how quickly you're exposed to the streets. Now, Dalio is not new to this. His entire hobby when he's not swimming in billions of dollars is writing long things on the arc of history where empires rise, gorge themselves on debt, and eventually collapse. Sounds like someone I may know. He basically treats the fall of Rome the way most of us treat old episodes of The Office. He keeps rewatching it. He's taking the occasional notes and waiting for the US to accidentally cast itself in the Michael Scott role. So what is the worst thing than a recession? Well, let's take a look. We can start off with the Great Depression in the 1930s. At its peak, unemployment was 25% in the Great Depression, industrial production fell by nearly 50%, and Americans were lining up at soup kitchens that made Olive Garden's unlimited breadsticks look like an absolute act of cruelty. Banks were collapsing so fast that Franklin D. Roosevelt had to declare a nationwide bank holiday. Which, by the way, sounds nice, sounds like a holiday, until you realize it meant the entire financial system is melting down. Please take the day off to panic quietly. Jump ahead to the 1970s stagflation crisis. Inflation blew past 13% in 1979, gas prices quadrupled, and people were lining up at gas stations like they were waiting for Taylor Swift tickets. Except instead of shake it off, you got to see shake your empty wallet while Jimmy Carter told you to put on a sweater. Or consider Argentina in the 1980s. Inflation there hit over 3,000% a year. 3,000% a year, by the way. Just wanted to clarify that. That means if you got paid in the morning, by lunchtime your paycheck was worth less than a hot dog. In fact, people were literally using US dollars or bartering because the peso had become about as useful as a Blockbuster gift card. Which, to be honest, they had their moment. Oh, Blockbuster gift cards, they had a moment. And this is not just a Latin America thing. Go back to Spain in the 1500s, they brought home so much silver from the Americas that silver itself crashed in value. And the empire managed to bankrupt itself while technically drowning in treasure. That's essentially like winning the lottery and immediately going broke because you spent it all on ostrich racing. Which, to be fair, sounds kind of awesome. You could also take Rome in the 3rd century. I mean, the emperors kept debasing silver coins with cheaper metals until the denarius was basically a Chuck E. Cheese token. Inflation spiraled, trade collapsed, and eventually the empire had to pay soldiers in land or food instead of money, which, let's be honest, is kind of like when your boss pays you in pizza. It's fun at first, but eventually you realize you can't pay taxes in pepperoni. And oh boy, I wish that were the case. I'd be the #1 taxpayer in the history of Canada. I wish I was joking about that. Anyways, the point is, when Dalio says worse than a recession, he's invoking these kinds of historical breakdowns. Moments when the trust in money itself, in debt, and the ability of governments to function just evaporated. And if history is any guide, those moments don't come with a polite recession chart. They come with breadlines, political upheaval, and a slow realization that your empire is slipping away. So what's going on today? Well, the US deficit in 2025 is projected at around $1.9 trillion. That's about 7% of the country's GDP, and we're not in a war or a depression, by the way, so those numbers are crazy. I mean, that's supposed to be the rainy day budget, but America has been pulling out the emergency umbrella on sunny days so often that the umbrella is essentially full of holes. And here's the other thing, the interest on that debt will cost $1 trillion a year now. That's more than the entire defense budget. You know, that thing when we were growing up about how America's military budget was so ridiculously high that they didn't need to spend that much money. Guess what? Now that's the 4th largest expense, depending on the year. I mean, healthcare, social security, interest on the debt, and then defense spending. By 2035, interest is projected to hit $1.8 trillion a year. I expect it will be higher, by the way, unless things change. And that will mean that over 4% of the US's GDP will be going just to interest on the federal debt. Imagine maxing out your credit cards, then maxing out another one to pay off the interest on that, and when your family asks what your plan is, you say, "Don't worry, I'll just start another credit card." It's that easy. This is what everyone's doing. And now, the markets are noticing this. So for years, US Treasuries were considered the safest investment in the entire world, the financial equivalent of a Volvo. But now, investors are demanding a higher term premium, basically hazard pay, just to hold long-term US debt. It's like the world is saying, sure, I'll lend you money, but I want an extra cut just in case you implode on yourself. And not in the fun way. Treasury auctions this year have already had really weak demand, which is not what you want to hear about the world's risk-free asset. Meanwhile, the banking system is sitting on over $395 billion worth of losses, unrealized losses right now, just from bonds. Banks bought these bonds when interest rates were low, and now they're worth less. So, the banks are keeping them on the books, pretending that nothing's wrong. It's financial cost play. The bonds are worth what the banks say they're worth, provided you never, ever sell them. Corporate America isn't doing much better. 446 companies filed for bankruptcy by July 2025, which is the fastest pace since 2010, aka essentially the bottom of the financial crisis. Commercial real estate is imploding right now, with delinquency rates hitting 7.29%. Office towers are half-empty monuments to glory days of working in person, now mainly populated by pigeons and tumbleweeds. Total household debt is now $18.4 trillion, and over 4.4% of that is delinquent. Credit card delinquencies are now at 3.05%, the highest since the Great Recession, and average credit scores are falling like ratings for every DC movie not starring Batman. Although, Superman, that was quite good. Then there's the current on and off trade war that's been going on. I mean, tariffs have spiked to 16 to 17% in the United States. Manufacturing, well, the US PMI came in at 48.7 in August, which is contraction territory for 6 straight months. It's like watching your economy slowly wheeze into a paper bag. Shipping costs are also falling, which sounds nice until you realize it's because demand is collapsing for shipped goods. And in the middle of all of this, investors are running to gold. Prices hit $3,600 to $3,700 an ounce this month, which is basically a giant middle finger to the idea that central banks or governments have things under control. Gold is what a lot of people run to when you think civilization might stop taking Venmo. Builder sentiment is at pretty much the lowest I've ever seen it, in the 30s, which is basically like them saying, "We are building, trust us guys, but only if you pay us in cash, or therapy, and maybe a little bit of whiskey on top." Put all of that together, a government addicted to debt, a banking system hiding losses, corporations defaulting, households maxing out, tariffs jacking up prices, inflation that refuses to die, and gold screaming, "Help!" Well, this is not recession territory. This is the outline of something scarier. I mean, if this is happening and we're not in a recession, then what will the recession look like? And it's probably not going to be a recession. It will likely end in some sort of collapse at this current rate. I mean, just some projections for everyone out there. Here's what we're looking at. The average person will likely fall further and further behind, younger people won't be able to buy houses, credit card delinquencies will continue to rise, household debt will also continue to rise, American federal debt will also continue to rise, and at that point, we will enter something which is what I think Ray Dalio is very scared of. If things do not improve, the United States of America is projected to enter a sovereign debt crisis, meaning the US won't be able to pay back its debt to its own people and other countries, and because the American economy is so big, it likely won't be able to get bailed out by any other country. One of the likely scenarios is that hyperinflation could happen to pay off this debt, meaning that all the money that Americans have in their bank accounts could just evaporate. It could also mean that America could cut all ties with other countries as well, therefore defaulting on their debt and not paying them back. That's also a likely scenario. This would also likely lead to some sort of global instability. Inflationary shocks will happen and ricochet through supply chains all around the world, global debt costs will rise, and trade will just fracture. Countries dependent on dollar-denominated debt, like much of Latin America or Africa, they're gonna get crushed, and probably first. And when that happens, again, expect more instability, more migration crises, and even wars. Basically, when the world's financial system sneezes, potentially within the next decade, poorer countries won't just catch a cold, they're gonna get pneumonia and potentially, well, they're gonna be in trouble. And this is what Dalio's warning about. We're heading to a society where people who own assets, even they might not be safe in the future. We're talking the only people in a society who might survive a potential collapse worse than a recession are the actual ultra rich. So right now, even if you're a homeowner and you're upper middle class and you think everything is stable, just know, America itself is not stable, economically speaking. Dalio's warning isn't just about GDP, it's about a systemic problem happening in the country. So everyone, be prepared, things could get real bad real soon. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click on my documentaries playlist with more videos just like this, and just make sure to click on that, and I'll see you guys in my next video in just a few seconds.